so much. There we go. Good morning, dear ones. It is my great joy and pleasure to be with you this morning. Reverend Kim, thank you so much for the opportunity. The rest of the story is, and Reverend Kim, as you well know, is somebody that you meet and you've known her forever, haven't you? Yes, it's so strange that it's just been a year. But we were at the INTA conference in Chicago last year, and the hotel was about 5 miles away from the church where the conference was. And so because I have a need for control, which we talked about earlier, I have to have a rental car. I need keys. I need car keys in my pocket. And so I had the rental car, so Reverend Kim and I rode back and forth together. So I had her as a captive audience for 10 or 15 minutes, and we talked about everything under the sun and more besides, which was so wonderful. So great to be with you today, and thank you again for the opportunity. So my topic for today is radically content. Being, doing, and having enough. In this teaching that we call unity, or new thought, or religious science, or divine science, or whatever area that you come from, we are invited, encouraged, and even challenged to keep moving. There's another workshop, there's another class, there's another something for us, which is wonderful, because life, this thing called life, this thing called spirit, this experience is always for us, always inviting and encouraging us to move forward and move forward. And that's wonderful. To get more stuff, to do more things, to get more education, more classes, more. And that's great. But is there a point where we can step back and say, at least for today, I've done enough. I have enough, and I am enough. Remember in the story of creation in the Old Testament, on the seventh day, what did God do? He hung out. Paraphrasing, obviously. But he looked at everything, said, "It is good," and he rested. Do we allow ourselves to do that? Or is there always something more? Do we have destination anxiety? You might have heard that term, that I'll be happy as soon as. I'll be successful as soon as. I'll be happy as soon as I get the new relationship. I'll be happy as soon as I get out of the old relationship. I'll be happy as soon as I finish this class or get my master's or my doctorate or clean out the garage or do whatever, or can I allow myself to be? Can I allow myself to be? To just be? And who decides when we're successful? Who decides when we have enough? My husband passed away almost 5 years ago, which is a whole separate story that we'll talk about the next time I see you, maybe. But he loved to bake. Now, my idea of cooking is the Stouffer's or the lean cuisine out of the freezer into the microwave, and poof, it's dinner. And we had been together for 33 years, and he was a cook when we met, and then when we got together, he forgot where the kitchen was. So I did the cooking, and it wasn't gourmet or anything, it just was food. But then one day he decided that he would start baking, and so he baked these absolutely amazing from-scratch cakes. this Italian cream cake so the frosting was cream cheese and coconut and pecans from scratch. I know, right? I'm drooling here just talking about it. Betty Crocker and Duncan Hines never came to my house because all the cakes were from scratch. But so he's frosting this one. And if you frosted a cake, you know that you do that, and then you turn it, and you do that, and you do that, and you turn it, and, well, no, that's not quite right, and then you do that. Who decides when it's done? Because 3 weeks from next Tuesday, you could still be working on frosting that cake. Who decides when it's enough? We do. But how often in our lives do we listen to outside wonderful, loving, nurturing sources to tell us what's next for us, to tell us what's enough? What if we could recognize and get and feel and accept and know that our value and our worth has nothing to do with what we've done, or our bank balance, or our education level, or our BMI, or anything outside ourselves, but rather that we are the essence, expression, and experience of spirit, period. So that's what we're talking about today. I love to talk about what we don't talk about. I love to talk about this topic, about forgiveness as a process, not an event, about allowing ourselves to feel grief and loss and anger and hurt and all of those things that we don't like to look at, so that we can wholeheartedly experience this thing called life. So, being, doing, and having enough starts with being. Who you are. Who I am. Now, don't tell anybody, but there are strange and wonderful things about me. I tie my shoes with rabbit ears. Do you know? I know. So you do the and I don't know why. I don't know why. That's how I learned. For whatever reason, I type with one finger on each hand. I could just, and I don't know whether I've just a little bit of motor skills issue or what the deal is, but the good news is my shoes get tied. The paper gets typed or done on the computer. It is accomplished. It's just a different way of doing it. Is it weird? No, because it works for me. Are those things about you that you do that might be a little bit different and unique from what someone else does? Are they weird? Is it strange? No. That's who you are. That's what you do. That's one of the gifts that you bring to the world. I have interests and passions, and so do you. Maybe unique, maybe different from someone else's, but if we all liked chocolate, there wouldn't be any chocolate. If we all liked vanilla, there wouldn't be any vanilla. So how important it is for us to recognize that our uniqueness and what makes our tail wag is ours. And not only is that okay, but it's wonderful. Do we recognize and feel and remember the quote from Course in Miracles that says, God himself, herself, themself would be incomplete without me, without you, just exactly as we are right here in this moment. Do we honor and celebrate all of this, or do we come from, and however long you've been in this teaching, we might still have that residue about original sin? Remember that I come from, I was raised in the Missouri Synod Lutheran Church. Now, if you're probably not familiar with the Lutheran Church, but there are different synods. And so the Missouri Synod is just about the most restrictive. Some people used to say that it's like Catholicism without the fun. So we didn't do, so I know, right? Yeah. So we didn't do incense, and we didn't do a lot of really high church, and we didn't do so much of the vestments and all the rest of that. But we did all the guilt and all the shame and all the original sin and all the rest of that those wonderful, in quotation marks, teachings. And so I went through, that was the church my parents found, so went through 8 years of grade school in a Lutheran school, and then was confirmed, all the while fighting with my sexual orientation. Because you're going to hell. God hates you, you're going to hell, and you're going to stoke the furnace, by the way. Not only are you just going to hang out, but you're down in the basement, right? No matter what your background is, do we still come from that belief that we're somehow not enough? And whether call it original sin, but somehow we're flawed, somehow something's wrong here. Do we still come with that? And is it, and we won't answer this question today, but is it in our DNA? Are we born with this belief that somehow we're not enough? Reverend Kim mentioned that this is a shameless advertisement, but Reverend Kim mentioned that I'm president of the affiliated New Thought Network, Anton. We're an organization of organizations and individuals. We do a retreat every year, and this year it's the first week in October at Unity Village. If you have not been to Unity Village, I so invite you to take it off your bucket list and come the first week in October. We have Jafon Seeley, we have Daniel Nahmod, we have amazing speakers and musicians, and Reverend Kim and me. What's not to like? But right? Yes, right? But I know, right? But and see me afterwards, and I'm going to tell you much more about that. But last year we had Milagros Phillips was one of our keynote speakers, and she talked about the experience and the shame and the grief of slavery, perhaps as being in the DNA of African American people. So is it possible that we're carrying this with us, or from an early age, this not enoughness, and I don't know if that's a word or not, but it is now, that somehow we're just not what Jesus said we were. We're just somehow we're not good enough. So we have to work. We have to work to get back to the garden. We have to work to be okay. So growing up, if you had that belief, you might have started comparing yourself. So I was not one of the cool kids. I was not one of the thin kids. I was not one of the athletes. And so there are the beautiful people, and then there's me. The normal people, the successful people, the good people. And it might be years or decades or centuries later, but do we still carry that with us? And work to somehow be okay and to be acceptable. One of my favorite books, A Life of Being, Doing, and Having Enough by Wayne Muller. He writes, "As seeds watered by the rains of spring, we fare best when nourished deeply and well by the simple daily nourishment of daily acceptance of who we are mercy for who we have been, and unconditional love for who we are becoming. We may gradually come to feel ourselves as children of spirit and grace, and perfectly good enough at that. Now, as we talk about enoughness and good enough, I invite you to be aware of your perception of those expressions, because we're not talking about settling, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. We're not talking about putting up with, we're not talking about settling for. We're recognizing that we right here in this moment are the beloved. Right this red hot second, we are the beloved. So, being and then doing. So, coming from that place of anger and grief, really, and all the rest of that growing up, I would do anything. As long, remember, and was it the Backstreet Boys? It's been too long. But remember that song, As Long As You Love Me? I don't care who you are, where you're from, what you did, as long as you love me. And many of us perhaps have come from that place. I'll put up with it. It's okay. As long as you love me, I will do anything. And of course, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. But I had the belief that if I do enough for you, if I show you how much I care about you, if I keep busy, ultimately you will love me and not reject me, and I'll be okay. If you come from that place, you know it is absolutely exhausting. Absolutely exhausting. And so in this consciousness of not enoughness, is that how we start our day? This morning, did you get enough sleep? Did you have enough coffee? Do you have enough time? Is there enough money? Do you have enough smarts and enough intelligence? Do you have enough? Are you enough? And so often we start our day in this consciousness of lack and struggle, and then of course throughout the day, of course there aren't enough parking places at Costco. Of course there's not enough lanes on the George Bush Turnpike. Of course there's not enough, because that's how we've begun our day, because we're not enough, and so there isn't enough. Versus, wow, I didn't clean up the kitchen last night, and it'll be there tonight. And that's okay. It's easier when you just live with a dog, because the dog doesn't complain. But even if you live with a roommate or a beloved, yep, I'm seeing it right there, and I'll take care of it tonight. You have my permission. Is there a list of things we should do? Now, see, that's my favorite word, the word should. Because if there were a way to take one word out of the dictionary and send it into space, that, to me, that's the word, is should. Because if we're shoulding on ourselves, that means, you should go to the gym this afternoon. You should not eat that chocolate cake. You should come to church on Sunday. Now, see, that's the exception, because you should come to church on Sunday. You're welcome. I know, right? Yeah. But the rest of those, because chances are when we get that thought that we really should do that, chances are we don't want to, or we really want to. I shouldn't have that other piece of pizza, but I really want to. So rather than shoulding on ourselves, is this mine to do? And if so, do it. And if not, don't do it. And we'll talk about that. Do you have a bucket list? Whose is it? Is it really yours? Or is it, oh my God, I had this most amazing experience. You've got to go. You've got to do. Okay. I love that you did that. That's so awesome, and we'll talk about that this afternoon. I love that you did that, but that's not mine to do. I don't want to do that. Is it okay for us to say yes and say no? What if I don't want to travel around the world? What if I don't want to go skydiving? Boy, do I not want to go skydiving. We do, north of San Diego, they do hot air balloons right on the coast. In Del Mar, it's so beautiful and it's so wonderful. And I'm standing on the ground, seeing them off in the distance, and it's just so cool. And there's no way in this life or the next one that I'm gonna do that. And that's okay. And that's okay. It's not ours to do. Again, did we come this morning with the thought that I'll be successful, I'll be okay, I'll be lovable as soon as? Or can we recognize that the truth of our being is right here in this moment? We are the beloved and we are enough. Can we say yes? Yes! And can we say no? Interesting question for me, certainly. So being, doing, and then having. In the beginning of the pandemic, I bought a Peloton machine. And I have to admit that for about the first 6 months, I was using it and I was pedaling and it was cool and it was nice and it's in the master bedroom and there's the television and so I'm watching Golden Girls or whatever and I'm on the Peloton and it's great. But now the gyms are open again and the bloom kind of fell off the rose and it's doing a wonderful job of holding my blankets and my bedspreads and all the rest of that. But it became clutter. Now consider this definition of the word clutter, and this is from this wonderful book, Clutter Busting by Brooks Palmer. Currently, you live in the most expensive type of trash can. The trash in your home or work environment consumes precious space and zaps energy from your life. It's time to make the place you live your home again. It's time to renew your energy. It's time to take out the trash. What is the trash? The trash or clutter includes the things you hold on to that are no longer useful to you in a positive way. And this is the Peloton machine. It's the stuff in the garage. Oof. It's the stuff in the garage. It might be the stuff in the storage bin. Oh, that we would have known 50 years ago, or 40 years ago, the amazing market for self-storage and invested our money in self-storage places. Because I don't know about y'all, but in San Diego, on every other street corner, there's a New Thought Church, we were talking about that earlier, and a self-storage place. Because so many people have so much more stuff than they can store in their house. If you have that, there is no judgment here. There is just, is that still important to you, or has it become clutter? And why do we keep it? Are we going to use it? Now, because don't tell anybody, but I have a junk drawer and I have a junk closet. I don't have a junk room so much anymore, but we keep things and that's okay, but there's always the opportunity to say, even though I really wanted that when I bought it, I don't need it anymore, I don't want it anymore, and lovingly release it. And it's our possessions, our stuff, but it's also beliefs, relationships, and stories. And we'll talk about that this afternoon as well. Because we're paying rent sometimes in actual money, if the stuff is in your house or it's in a storage place. We're paying money to keep those possessions that no longer serve us. We're paying emotional toll on ourselves if we're keeping a story or a relationship that is clutter versus looking at it, changing the story, lovingly releasing what no longer serves us. So there's the opportunity to do that. So why does it matter? Why does it matter? Because life works, I'm sure you will agree with me that life works better when we are in joy and wonder and passion and excitement, not in obligation and drudgery and shoulds. It just works so much better. There's nothing you have to do. There is nothing we have to do. But if given the choice, and we are always given the choice, there is the opportunity to look at these areas of our lives, decide what still works, decides what's mine to do, be, and have, and what's not, and make the necessary adjustments. Another quote from Wayne Muller. What would we need to change in our eyes? What shift could we make so we might see in ourselves, our relationships, our work, taking the good with the bad, the failures and successes, and then, as God assessed the whole of creation, look at the raw, unwashed truth of all we see and say, it is good. It is good. Everything we've done, everything we have, everything we are in this moment, it is good. Yes, it may change. We will grow. We will heal. It'll become easier and closer to our heart's desire. But for now, if you stop for an instant, what happens if you simply say, it is good? What do you notice? So I love the concept of being radically content. Think about that, radically content. I love Facebook. I'm not a stockholder. I have no financial relationship with Facebook or Meta, I think they call themselves now. But there's the greatest stuff, and just about every week as I'm scrolling, and of course the good news is that God gave us the opportunity to just keep scrolling and scroll past the goofy stuff and scroll past the stuff that's hurtful and scroll past the stuff that doesn't serve you. Just keep scrolling. But I find amazing wisdom, and every once in a while I find an advertisement for a book. And this book, Radically Content, Being Satisfied in an Endlessly Dissatisfied World. This just really rung my chime, as it were. And Jamie Veron is the author. And I'll have this with me after the service, so if you want to come, write it down. I love the book. I love the book. Hold in my hand, look at the pages, mark up the pages because it's my book. I love to do that. But she talks about being willing to look at us right in this moment and be radically content. I mean, we've got it pretty good in this absolutely gorgeous sanctuary with this amazing spiritual community. We got it pretty good. And yes, there's more down the road, and yes, there's more possibility, but can we be content in this moment? And in the book she writes, a radically content life includes all my most honest dreams and desires, but doesn't delay the enjoyment of the present moment. A life that doesn't wait to earn my joy, relaxation, or health. A life that isn't out of balance, skewed in favor of trying to accomplish my way into self-worth. Contentment is not about living without dreams or hopes, not complacency, not settling. It's about living fully expressed and settling in. So we're not settling, we're settling in to everything we've experienced, to exactly where we are in this moment, in the recognition that, yeah, that's what they taught me growing up, and it's so not my truth. And I settle into the fact that I am the beloved. And they were talking their truth, but it's not mine. So settling in to this amazing thing called life. So at 12:30, what do you think? 12:30, we're going to do a deeper dive into a lot of this that I've talked about in a workshop. We'll go for an hour and a half to 2 hours in this wonderful, cool place. So I invite you to hang out with me, and we're gonna learn some things, and we're gonna share some ideas, and I think it's gonna be really good. So I hope you'll stay with me for this. Emma Curtis Hopkins is one of the early religious science writers, and she studied, I think it was, so as I was preparing for this, I'm picturing Charles and Myrtle, Emma, Ernest Holmes, 3 or 4, Raymond Charles Barker at Starbucks in Chicago, sitting around talking about New Thought. And, I don't think there was Starbucks around back then, but listen to this. This is from Scientific Christian Mental Practice. Right near at our hand is the heavenly city. While we have called it distant, could we expect it to be near? Right here, visible to us, is the heavenly land. Could we expect it to show us its beauties if we talked of it being invisible? Right now, right this red hot second, my words, not hers, you are wise and immortal, free, strong, and at peace. Can you expect to feel your own true nature and delight in your estate if you keep talking and thinking of how little you know, how mortal flesh and blood are, and how unhappy you are? Buddha taught that self is the Lord over self. If you and I do not speak from the spiritual self of us, it will not act. We are the arbiters of our own destiny. The Spirit is truthful and takes us at our word. So what do we say about ourselves? What do we talk about? What do we think about all day? So take the class. Come to the workshop, do that. But take the class. Clean out the garage, go to the gym, go back and get that degree, whatever you want to do, but do it from your place of, yes, I want to do this, not I should do this, or not because somebody told me to. Make sure that it's a stop on your map of your life experiences. Make sure it's a stop on your map, not somebody else's. And at least from time to time, take the opportunity of moving from FOMO, which is the fear of missing out, to JOMO, which is the joy of missing out. The sacred yes, the sacred no. So with that in mind, would you join me for a brief meditation? So in the peace and the quiet of this moment, we offer great gratitude for this beautiful day, for this wonderful place, for this beloved spiritual community, and the opportunity to be together today. What I know and accept for myself and for each of us here is that we are the beloved. We are the essence, expression, and experience of Spirit, right here, right now, in this moment, regardless of the past, because Spirit knows no past, regardless of what we're going to do later today or tomorrow, right here in this moment, we are already whole, complete, and perfect. We are the beloved. And so as we move into a few minutes of quiet time, I invite you to consider that quote from Course in Miracles. God himself, God herself, God themselves would be incomplete without me. As the essence, expression, and experience of spirit, what does that mean to you, and what does that mean for you? Let's go into the silence now. So as we move forward today, we allow ourselves to come from that knowing and that feeling that we are the essence, expression, and experience of spirit. We move forward in that knowingness, in that wisdom, and say yes and say no based on that knowing, in love and compassion and understanding, but also recognizing that we are the experts in our lives and get to speak our truth. For this day, for our time together, we give great thanks. And together we say, and so it is, amen.